Hi, everyone. How are you today? Well, welcome to this presentation. I hope you had a lot of fun yesterday at the party. Hopefully not too much fun. Maybe I did a bit. Let's get to business. So today we're here to talk about the Windows Scenic Ribbon. And a bit more than a year and a half ago, Office released their newest version of their suite of applications. And the big difference with the previous version of their suite of applications, as you probably know, is this new UI paradigm at the top of the window, which is called the ribbon. There has been a lot of very good feedback about this experience that Office received. And actually, a lot of developers out there, and probably some of you here today, who were very interested into integrating a similar kind of experience into their application. So Office actually ran some survey across a lot of different users in order to feel what was the satisfaction along different criteria about the ribbon. And I forgot most of the criteria. There's let's say about 30. And what is very interesting is for almost all of them, if not all, the response was extremely positive. And actually, more than 70% of people were very positive on each of the different criteria. One of the criteria was, I found actually pretty funny. It was the last one in the survey. One of the questions was, does the ribbon make your life less stressful? And I found that kind of funny, but actually 60% of people think, yes, the ribbon makes my life less stressful. Well, that is interesting. So that is great. And, but here the problem. So far, you were pretty much out of luck. And there was no platform provided by Microsoft in order for you guys to add the ribbon to your application. So today, we're here to change that. And one of the platforms that we are going to talk about today is the Windows Scenic Ribbon. This is a ribbon which comes with Windows 7. As you might expect, well, it does look like a ribbon. The UI got refreshed a little bit to make it look more integrated with the look and feel of Windows 7. Few characteristics. It is in box with Windows 7. It will be one of the rare functionality that comes with Windows 7 that will go down level. And it will go down level to Vista. It is Win32 COM based. So it does target native developers first, though it's quite easy to use it for managed code also, and I'll talk about that later. Feature-wise, it's pretty much the same that you see today in Office. Oh, well, let's have a quick view of this ribbon. I mean, you probably all know what it looks like. You have seen it many times already, but just for the giggles, let's look at it. So is it Paint in Windows 7 with the new Windows Scenic Ribbon. And all the functionality of the ribbon that you would expect are built into the platform. So some, for example, as chunk resizing. As I resize the ribbon, the different chunks of the chunk are these different group of control here. As I resize the ribbon, different chunks are resizing in a specific order. Then you have all the kind of functionality that similar to Office, like fancy drop-down, multi-tab, application menus, and some new functionality that are only available in the ribbon today, like, for example, what we call live preview. Live preview is really the capability to visualize what the result of command will be before you actually apply it. There's also a new concept, part of the ribbon, which is called contextual tab. So yeah, I'm about to add some text. And automatically, a new tab becomes active. And the whole idea behind contextual tab is there is a set of functionalities that are only available when the end user is about to perform a specific action, and it disappears immediately after. OK. Should you be using a ribbon? Does it make sense for you to have a ribbon? Most likely, yes, but maybe not. So let's talk a little bit about that. One of the first questions that you should ask yourself is, what type of application am I? And there is no general rule, unluckily, I can give you that will easily answer the question, well, if you are this type of application, yes, definitely, go ahead, use the ribbon. If you're not, don't. A lot lies in the detail. Though a nice guideline that you can follow is, if your application is about document authoring, meaning you deal with a document, the ribbon is most likely a very good fit for your application. So few advantages that you will get using a ribbon. Well, one of them that you probably heard a lot, and it was one of the main reasons why Office added a ribbon to their applications. Office had a lot of commands into their application. Like Word has about 1,000 commands. And what was happening is a lot of end users were requesting some specific functionality in Word when they didn't even know that actually Word had that functionality for maybe years and different versions. And the reason was, well, it was way too hard to figure out that Word had that functionality already. So the Office team went through a whole design review, and there's an excellent video about that, and came up with a ribbon. They added also a few new concepts. So it's not just about reorganizing your commands so the end user don't get confused. Some of this new concept is the one I demonstrated just early on in MS Paint's ribbon. Live preview in these galleries in particular, meaning as you roll over the mouse over the different commands that you have in the ribbon, you can preview them in real time before the end user actually decide to apply this ribbon to this command to the document. Contextual tab is also a nice new feature added to the ribbon. But maybe the single one and more important feature that end user in particular notice when they see the ribbon, and it might be why a lot of developers out there are interested into adding the same experience into their application, is the new look and feel that the ribbon experience just provides to an application. It's really bring a complete refresh of the UI and create a lot of excitement to the end users. A very good resource that I recommend you to go look at is the link I put below in this slide. If you want more granular detail about should I be using a ribbon and how should I be using it, there's a lot of steps into this document that will drive you into understanding, does the ribbon make sense for me? So I talked so far a lot about the Scenic Ribbon. Let's step back 1 second. There are today a lot of technologies that developers are using to build UI into their application. And maybe one is missing here. I'll come back to it. 3 very important ones are WPF, MFC, and pure Win32. Under these 3 technologies, the Ribbon platform is being released. And what is very important to realize is these teams work closely together at the technology level in order to provide a similar API to the developer. The API are not exactly the same, and there are differences, but we worked across technology to make sure that they are as close as possible. And in particular, the WPF API and the Scenic API are quite close to each other. There is a missing technology here, which is managed WinForms. I omitted it here. Maybe that was a mistake. But we didn't forget about WinForms either. And actually, we will be releasing some managed wrapper around the Windows Scenic Ribbon that will allow you easily to leverage the Windows Scenic Ribbon in WinForms. So as we were thinking about, well, how do we want to architect this platform, these new UI capabilities that we'll be bringing to Windows 7, we stepped back a little bit and we looked at the story that Windows has today for developers who want to use Win32 and the native API in order to build UI for Windows. And while not everything is perfect in the world of Win32, and Win32 has a lot of advantages, and it's pretty powerful, but it's also very challenging to use. And maybe the most single challenge is that, well, it requires a lot of code to write to do simple things. The second pain point today in building UI for Windows is that it's actually quite hard to follow guidelines. And if you want to have your application behave correctly in high DPI, in high contrast, in spacing of the controls so it doesn't look too crowded, so basically that fits better with Windows, it actually takes, again, a lot of effort. So as we were architecting this platform, we had two goals in mind. Goal number one, we wanted to provide a great authoring story. In a few words, basically, we wanted to make it easy for you guys. Goal number two, we wanted to provide a platform that naturally drive the developers, you maybe, to create a consistent user experience with Windows. So how did we do that? There's a few concepts that we decided to apply early on. First, strong model view controller separation, use of markup. Actually, we have very strong decoupling between code and markup. And so I'm going to get back to strong model view controller separation. In the graph below, what you can see is, on the left, the markup. This is what you are going to use to describe all the different functionalities that you want to expose into your application. So basically, it's going to be, well, I want 3 tabs, and tab number 1 is going to be the home tab. And inside it, here's a set of functionality that we want to expose. All that is done in markup. This is the view. This is, hey, here's the kind of control I want to use. In C++, all you need to do is to connect the events that these different controls are going to generate with the business logic of your application. So this is the controller. And the great advantage into doing so is the C++ API surface is very, very small. And as I'll go to the code right after, actually, you'll see that there are very few functions and interfaces that you need to deal with in order to create a ribbon in Windows. Let's do that right now. So what we are going to do today, we are going to go through a little exercise. And I'm going to use an existing application that you might already know, which is called HTML Edit. The source code of this application is part of the Windows SDK. And what we are going to do is see what it means to add a ribbon to this application. So that is HTML Edit, fairly standard look and feel in Windows, a bit outdated maybe even. you have all the basic functionality that you will expect from an HTML editor. So I can change the font size, I can insert picture, create hyperlink, etc. Use the source code. This is HTML edit. So let's look at what it means today to add the Windows Scenic Ribbon to this application. So right now, there is no code but the header files that are already included that has been added to HTML edit for me to add the ribbon. So what you're going to see is exactly what you need to write. There is nothing behind the scene. What we are going to do, in order to add the ribbon, we are going to create two functions: init ribbon, destroy ribbon. That's what I'm going to do right now. I'm using macros to do that because I want to type faster. And I don't have a super memory either, so that is helpful. So I have init ribbon, I have destroy ribbon. First thing we need to do is create the platform. Welcome base is co-create instance. We get a UI framework pointer back. There's a few functionality that we need to deal with UI framework. First one is, well, we want to initialize it. And in order to initialize the framework, initialize expect two parameters. The first one is going to be, well, what is the window that you want to add a ribbon to? So it's going to be an H-win. The second parameter is going to be an interface that the application needs to implement in order to receive various callbacks and events that are happening into the ribbon. So let's do that right now. So what happened here? I paid the H-win. I pass the application pointer that I'm creating right here. And right now, what we need to do is actually implement the application. We're going to do that right here. Here it is. We have the application. And we implement one interface called IUI application. IUI application is a very, very simple interface. Here it is, 3 functions. That's all we need to do. Last thing we need to do is, well, we initialize the framework. We need to tell it, well, what ribbon to display out there. So we have a markup here. I explain later how to author the markup. Let's finish the initialization first. Very fast. As you can see, it's very intuitive. I'm going to describe, hey, I have a ribbon. It's made of tabs. Right now, we're going to use one tab. It's going to be our home tab. Inside it, we are going to make use of one chunk. It's going to be our clipboard chunk. And we are going to define 4 commands: paste, cut, copy, select all. We also need to create a small rule in a Visual Studio through custom build step to let the compiler know what to do with this markup file. There's a tool called IntentCL, which is part of the Windows 7 SDK, that is going to compile this markup and create an optimized binary version of it. I'll get back to that. So let me go there. So let's load this markup. All we have to do is load UI, specify the resource where we saved our markup. It's pretty much it. So let's just terminate the application. Let's call destroy ribbon. And one last thing I need to do, I won't go into details. We need to let the application relay out itself in order to make room for the ribbon. So that is done by getting the size of the ribbon. I won't go in detail. It's just very simple. You can ask, hey, what is the size that the ribbon needs? OK, so we have init ribbon, destroy ribbon, and ribbon height. Well, we need to call this function somewhere, right? So let's just do that. First function we need to call that is, well, is initialization. Let's call init ribbon. in the destruction, let's call destroy ribbon, and one more in the layout, where we're going to return the ribbon size. Let's compile it, and as you would expect, hopefully, we have a ribbon. It's fully functional. We have the 4 commands that we declared in markup previously: paste, cut, copy, select all. There's already a few functionality that are working, even if I didn't do anything with them yet. The application menu, it's empty. The quick access toolbar, it's functional. No code to write, it just works, is baked in. Obviously, something is missing right now is, well, it's great, I have all these commands here, but when I click on them, nothing is happening. So there's one more thing I need to do, is hook up this different command with my application. Before I show you how to do that, let's get back to our presentation, and let's just have a quick look at what have we been doing so far. And not much, actually. It was very simple. On the right, we have the application. On the left, the Ribbon platform. All we have to do is, hey, instantiate the Ribbon platform, co-create instance, initialize it, and load the markup. We also had to implement IUI application, which was fairly simple, and that's it. And we have a ribbon fully functional into the window of the application. Now what we need to do is to connect events. So there is one more function that we need to care about. It's called onCreate command. And onCreate command is going to be called back on the application for each individual command that you define in markup. What you will have to do on the onCreate command is to return an interface. And that is the third and last interface I'm going to talk about today. So there's 3 interfaces to implement a ribbon. This interface is very, very simple. It has 2 functions, execute, update property, and is fairly similar to any commanding infrastructure that you may have dealt with in the past. Maybe the name were slightly different. Maybe update property was called get status. It's pretty much the same. Execute is going to be called on you when the end user performs an action with the ribbon to let you know, hey, maybe you, the application, you want to do something. Update property is to do the opposite. This is how the ribbon platform can ask the application, hey, let me know if something changed. And one of the most common things that might have changed is, well, this command is not available anymore. It's disabled or it's enabled. So let's look at that in code again. So I'm loading my second project with my next set of macro that help me cheat a little bit. Hold on. And all we're going to do is implement these 2 functions that I just showed you. So we need to implement onCreate UI command and return this IUI command handler interface that I just described. Here, to keep it simple, instead of returning a new object, we're just going to return the same object that we are using for the application. So in onCreate UI command, we are returning ourselves. Now, we need to implement the new IUI command handler interface. Here it is. And add these 2 functions, execute and update property at the end. Here they are. Let's just make sure it works. So I'm putting a breakpoint on execute. And now each time I will be interacting with a command in the ribbon, execute is going to be called on the application side, giving the opportunity for the application to perform an action. So I'm just going to click on select all. Here we are. But hopefully it's not what we want to do, right? We actually want to execute some code. And we want to do that in a way that I do not need to care about, well, what is the particular command I'm dealing with? I mean, come on, we already have HTML edit, which has its own commanding infrastructure. Wouldn't it be nice if we can just plug into it so I don't need to rewrite any specific code for each and every command that I'm going to define into the markup? So there's one function that you probably all know already, which is called send message. And all we're going to do is just transfer any execute call to the application. Send message is expecting to know who do we need to send this message to. That is the same window that we passed early on that the ribbon is attached to. So I'm specifying the parameter. I did my data member, and we just need to initialize this data member here. Let's do that now. OK, done it here. And now if I run the application, I will have all these different commands working. So what is nice here is that what I want you to start thinking about is like, I'm just setting the basis for me to be able to add more and more commands to the ribbon without having to change any code. Before we get to that, one more thing that you might notice doesn't work quite right is all these commands are always enabled. And we certainly want some of them to be disabled if you cannot execute them right now. So we need to implement update property. Let's do that right now. Forget about get status right now. I'll come back to it. So it's pretty much a couple of lines of code. And we are responding to the property pkey enabled. And all we're doing is initializing this property with the state of this particular command. In order to know the state of this particular command, I'm using getStatus. GetStatus is not code which is specific to the Windows Scenic Ribbon, just some code I copy-paste from the application actually, and that are returning the status of a specific command. So here it is. Let's launch it. Oh, something happened. Well, we're not there yet entirely. I need to do one more thing. What is happening here, all commands are disabled, and there's a good reason behind that. The reason being, at the beginning, all HTML-edit commands are disabled per default. And that changed over time. And so we need to let the ribbon know, hey, by the way, something changed here. You might want to update yourself. So we're going to use another function called ribbon invalidate that we'll just call invalidate commands into the ribbon and call it from the application code. It is. So it's working, cut, copy are there. It's working. So now what is nice is that, here it is. I set up the basis for me in order to actually add the functionality to the ribbon. And in a way that will minimize the amount of code I will have to write. I'm going to show that to you right now. Before I get to that, let's have a quick look at all the different controls that are available. And you might have wondered, actually, why do we use update property? And why do we use a property system? Well, there's a good reason behind that is, well, we have more complex control than just toggle button and commands. We have a vast variety of control, and pretty much all the control that you see today in the Office ribbon. Well, a quick snapshot right now on the screen. And what is nice is that all these different controls, the way you program against them is through these two single functions, execute and update property. There is no other thing you need to care about. These two single functions are going to enable you to program against these, all these different controls. Oh, yeah, sorry, got confused. Something which is even nicer. As we were architecting this application, and there were these two goals that we were talking about that really drove how we were exposing the different functionalities in the API for the ribbon. We made this decision early on to have one side of the API is going to be markup-based, and one side of the API, which is going to be code-based. But we went further. What we also decided is, well, you know what? Instead of replicating all the different functionalities that you can do in markup in code and vice versa, could we architect these two parts of the API so they target some very specific scenarios? The one I was describing just earlier on. The markup is a view, the code is the controller. And what is nice doing so is it enabled us to very much optimize each part of the API to fit very well for a specific scenario. The second advantage that it brings us is today, in Win32 for sure, a lot of the work for authoring an application end up being done by the C++ developer. And there's a lot of nitty-gritty work that needs to happen where the C++ developer is being involved. It can just be as, well, you know what? The client or the designer, whoever, changes mind. They want a different icon. They want a different control, or they want it somewhere else. Or they don't want the control anymore, or they want it bigger. And fairly often what happens is, well, the C++ developer gets involved. We don't mind if the C++ developer gets involved, fine. But it shouldn't be mandatory. So what was super important was, let's try to architect a platform that enables some people who do not have C++ skills and maybe a bit less knowledge about how to build an application to let and enable them to create the UI of an application. So in order to do so, we had to create this big separation between the two. The nice advantage we have doing this separation also is it enables us to abstract the behavior from each individual control from the event handling of the control. I was just describing earlier is, well, all these controls are going through the same two functions, execute and update property. What is even nicer is if two controls deals with the same data type, C++-wise, you don't care. Meaning that if you use a checkbox or a toggle button, C++-wise is just a control which deals with a Boolean. Who cares if it's a checkbox of a Boolean? Let's leave that to the designer or someone else to specify that in markup. Why me in C++ do I need to be involved with a specific visual representation of a control? What is very important for the developers is what is the behavior behind the control. So me as a developer, I can hook up this behavior with the business logic of my application. I just took the example of toggle button and checkbox, which deals with Boolean. But you can imagine that goes further than just Boolean. You have strings. There's many controls that enable you to update the strings. There might be color. Why should I care that I use a drop-down color picker? Or maybe some kind of, I don't know, fancy dial that let me choose what kind of gradient of color I want to use. Me as a business logic, because it's really the value added that you bring in your application, all I want to know is what is the color that I should be dealing with right now. And let the designer deal with the visual representation of the control. So it's what we did. And I'm going to show that to you right now. Okay. And now we are going to work for markup. before I start adding more controls, let's just come back a little bit and let's look at the current control that I do have right now. So I just described, well, you want a ribbon with some tabs and some command into it. Here's what you have to do. I don't tell you the whole truth before. Something I omitted to tell you. Well, we have command name, paste, cut, copy, select all. And as you've seen, all these commands add an icon, they add a label. Well, that needs to be specified somewhere, right? That is being specified in markup too. And at the beginning of this file, I actually define a bunch of different commands that I want to make use into the ribbon. Let's look at the copy command. All the different attributes of a command, like again, tooltip, different images, label is here, are being defined in markup. And what is nice here is that wherever I'm going to use this command, automatically all these different attributes of the command are going to be pulled and used in the same location. What is nice again is that whoever owns the markup can deal with all these different attributes without being involved in any C++ code at all. The last parameter, which is quite interesting here, is the ID. It's an optional parameter, but you can force it. What is the ID for? The ID is to allow you to specify a value that will represent this command so you can connect it with the C++ code. And here, the reason why cut, copy, paste, select all were all working automatically is because the value I decided for each of these commands is the value that HTML edit were already using to handle specific commands. A few things that you might notice, or not. If you are WPF developers, or if you know WPF, there's a few things that you might have noticed, is that the syntax of the markup is very similar to XAML that WPF is making use to describe their object model. And there is a very good reason behind that. Well, the main one being that it is XAML. But the second reason is that why did we pick XAML? As I was telling you at the beginning, we work very closely across the different technologies in order to make sure that whatever API that we provide, it is going to feel the same across the different technologies. So we work super hard and very closely with WPF in order, the both teams together, in order to make sure that whatever markup structure and naming convention we are using is going to be the same across the two different technologies. So if you were to look at the WPF ribbon, you will see that it is very, very similar. There's a few differences, but it's pretty much the same. The markup that you are seeing right now is not a final markup. It got updated in the beta version. But it is a markup that you have in the PDC build of the Windows SDK that you got yesterday. There's a funny story, actually, behind the XAML markup that I want to tell you. And as I was saying, we are working very closely with the WPF team in order to make sure that whatever markup that we need to provide for the ribbon, it's going to feel the same across the two different technologies. And it happened that Bill Gates was very interested into that. And I had the chance, an opportunity to meet with Bill Gates a few weeks before he left, to talk, left Microsoft, to talk to him about, hey, here what we are doing with WPF team together in order to provide the ribbon platform to the two different technologies. So it was the first time I was meeting Bill Gates, so obviously I was like very anxious and but very excited about it. So I wanted to take some notes just to be sure I would not forget to tell him about what I had to say about the markup. So I took my nicest notebook, opened it, put a few bullet points into it, quite clear so it would be easy to read them. and verify it. Yeah, it's exactly what I want to tell Bill Gates. Took my notebook, put it on my desk, right next to me, open, so I could easily peek into it if I needed to. Demo time. Bill Gates comes to the office. I stand up, introduce myself. Hi, I'm Nicholas. He didn't introduce himself, but I assume he probably assumed that I didn't know who he was, right? And but the first thing that Bill did is probably after wandering around in different offices to see what people were working on, well, he probably wanted to sit down. And one of the first things he did was, well, he sat down on my desk right on the top of my notebook. I thought that was funny. I thought maybe it's why in the Seinfeld commercial he was shaking it at the end, but okay, let's go back to a XAML story here. So here we define a command, and here's how we use it. Well, what about we had a few more commands here? Let's start by adding a new tab. We're going to have an insert tab. A group into it, a group of control, and let's add two control. Insert picture, hyperlink. Automatically, through the macro, these two commands have been defined above in the markup too. And let's run it. Oh, I didn't compile this project yet. So here, what is nice, again, is I'm adding some new command to my application, and I'm not modifying the C++ code. And there it is, it's working. I can click on it. Insert picture is hooked up. Create hyperlink is enabled or disabled based on the context, and it's working. That is pretty cool. By the way, I've been using this ribbon for like maybe a good 10 minutes now, and you've all been watching it. So that means that 60% of you should feel less stressed in their life right now. Isn't that nice? Well, I'm going to try to make the other 40% less stressed too now. OK, we just added two commands. Let's add a few more. So again, it automatically added a few commands at the top. I can show you that if you're interested. I added two groups in the main tab. One is going to be a group of control that deal with font capabilities. And the other one is going to be something that deals with this view source and WYSIWYG toggle switch. Let's look at that. Here it is. And something interesting that you might notice here, I just added one command, and I will show you that. Oh, I can show you that right now. One command, which is font here. I'm making use of the font control, and the font control automatically make use of all these different control that you can affect the particular font that you want to use. And what is nice, again, I was just talking about the abstraction that you have in C++. Well, we have a command of type font. Doesn't matter that there's a bold button, an italic button. And maybe later, maybe in Windows 8, we might decide, you know what, that shouldn't be toggle button. It should be represented visually differently. What is important here is that in the event handling in C++ code, all you need to deal with is a font value. It doesn't matter how the font value is being filled. It's just a font value. Maybe one day we have a different way to fill the font value, but in C++ code, all you care about, hey, it's something I deal with font, nothing to change. View source is working automatically. It's a toggle button, as you can see. And I will need to change a few lines of code here, unluckily. And there's a reason. Well, HTML edit has no clue of what the font value is. is using a different paradigm. It was using different kind of combo box in order to do font face that are not command-based. So there was some very specific and particular code in order to handle font. So right now, all it knows what to do is when I click on any of these control here, I can click on italic, it's just displaying the font picking dialog. So obviously it's not what we want. So we'll need to change that. Before we do so, let me show you this abstraction that I was just talking about. So we just defined toggle button in markup. What about we also define a checkbox? I'm going to refer to the same commands, run it, and automatically it's working, and the two are in sync. And again, no C++ code to write. I can add to the quick access toolbar, and everything is working. OK, let's hook up the font. I'm not going to go in details about how to hook up all the details. It's just some translation code from the font value to the different font functionality that HTML edit has. So I'm just going to show you how it's hooked up in the execute and update properties. So all we are doing is say, hey, if it sees a command font that has been declared markup, then call this specific update font function. Same thing in execute. If it's command font, call this specific set font function. And what these two functions are doing, and I can show you the code later if you're interested into, is translate that for HTML edit. Nothing that interesting. Something cool now. What you might have, well, you probably don't notice it because I didn't show you, but in the original HTML edit, if you switch to the view source mode, there is a lot of commands that automatically become disabled in HTML edit. Some of these are, well, font picking capabilities. Create, hyperlink, insert image. So that is a limitation of HTML edit. Like the author decided, well, these functionalities are not going to be available when I am in a source, view source. Well, right now, all these controls are still enabled. And, well, actually, this one is enabled. So we would like to do similar behavior and automatically have everything that we don't care when we're in view source be disabled. But actually, we'd like to do that even better. It doesn't really make sense if I'm going to add dozens and dozens of functionality, and when I click on view source, suddenly there is just the clipboard that are enabled, and everything else in the ribbon is going to be disabled. Maybe there's a better way to represent that visually. And what would be nice, maybe it would be, well, let's just hide all the control that I am not interested in when dealing with a particular mode. But again, we would like to do so without having to write a big if statement or function that say, oh, if I am in view source, then go hide this control and go hide this control. What about you go hide this too also? And then you have the designer that come to you and say, oh, I want this tree to be hidden too, or the client or whoever is defining the UI of the application. And each time, the developer is like, OK, which control you want to be removed when I'm in this particular mode? Fine, I will update the function. Oh, it shouldn't be removed. Fine, I will update the function. That would be nice, again, if we could specify in an easy way what control belong to a specific mode of execution of the application. So that is being done through what we call application modes. And what you can do in markup is to tag some nodes with the application node attribute, what I'm going to do right now. So what I did here, I tag the font chunk with, hey, application mode equal 1, and I tag the insert tab with application mode equal 1. So default mode that all control are in is 0. That's what you get. Then you can add them to any mode that you want. So you can say, hey, I want mode 1 and 2 and 3, or just mode 3. You will do it this way, etc. Then, the only thing that the developer will need to be involved with will be switching modes. But then what happens when you switch mode? All that is defined in markup. So here I just added a function, setMode, that I'm going to call from HTML edit source code. It's just transferring the code to the framework. And from the source code, I forgot which file I need to call it from suddenly. I have a blank. Oh, it is this one. At the beginning, when we start, we want the default mode and mode 1 to be enabled. So we just call, hey, send mode, both modes should be available to the end user. Then a bit later, when the end user clicks view source, well, we just want mode 0 to be working. And then a bit later, if you come back to the WYSIWYG representation, we want again both modes to be working. Let's see that in action. And it is. So automatically in markup, I can tag all the nodes that do not belong to a mode, and you can create as many modes that you want. Well, actually, 32. I didn't show you the font stuff just to show you that it's working now. You can change the font. And what is nice here is that I have live preview automatically working for me. And if I select it, it's going to be applied. Font size, live preview automatically working. Color drop-down, live preview automatically working. So that is nice. All that, I didn't have to write any specific code. That is working automatically for me. OK. It's not exactly the last word. I forgot to do something. It's OK. I didn't finish the demo. We didn't finish this whole application, where I added the font control, the view source, the insert tab, but there was more functionality into the HTML edit ribbon. So I'm not going to go and add all of them. I can do that. And if some people are interested, I can show more code. But what I want to show to you is a final end result. And in particular, before I show you the final end result, let's just have a look very fast at HTML edit as it is today in the Windows SDK. So here it is, with all these different functionalities. So there was also some tabulation functionalities, etc. And in about less than 40 minutes, or about 40 minutes, we added a ribbon in real time. And here it is. I mean, I think you can agree that it was not much work to really refresh the UI of this application and to make it quite much better and much more end-user friendly and exciting for the end user. And everything is working. Actually, as I was writing the demo, I spent way more time trying to find some good icons I could use for the ribbon than writing the actual markup and code. Markup code took like 1 hour, but then I spent maybe a day trying to find the right icon. That was crazy. And here it is, everything working. It is. So hopefully now the other 40% are less stressed. I don't know. OK, let's go back to the last word slide. OK, there's a few things I want you to remember about the Windows ribbon. The programming model. And we really try to make it super easy to author. And I think we did a pretty good job. Nothing is perfect. There will be always the edge case that, I wish here they would have made it a bit easier for me. But it's pretty simple, pretty damn simple. And what I like also is the nice separation that we achieved between the behavior of the control that you deal with in code and the different visual representation and organization of control and the different attributes of command, and all that is being specified in markup. And that allows someone which is not as experienced as the developers to own for the first time the markup. The other thing that I talked a bit less about, but which is super important, is by providing this abstraction, we can nicely and per default apply a lot of consistency into the Ribbon platform. Some of this consistency that I talked about is high DPI, accessibility, but even go further than that. Size of the control. How the ribbon should resize when you resize the window. The space between the different controls. All that is automatically handled. Something else I want you to remember about is we developed this technology very closely with the WPF team and MFC team. And the ribbon is available in these two different technologies also. The WPF team is presenting their ribbon tomorrow, I think, and will be available sometime late next year, I believe. The MFC team already have a ribbon and will release an updated version to it late next year too. Before you go ahead and add a ribbon to your application, ask yourself, is the ribbon for me? It might not be. A very good chance that it is, but maybe not. So don't just jump the gun and go ahead and implement it. Just take a little bit of time and ask yourself. Finally, we have an hands-on lab. So if you really want to play with the ribbon, I invite you to try the hands-on lab. It's very easy to go through. And you pretty much will do what I've been doing today. You will actually start from scratch. You won't be modifying HTML edit. You will write an application from scratch. Fairly easy to follow. I invite you to do that. I will actually be there tomorrow morning between 9:30 and 12 if you have some question. In the meanwhile, I thank you very much, guys, for coming today. I was very pleased that you were interested in this presentation. I'm now going to open the floor to question and answer. Thank you very much. Yep.
Hi. Is this still subject to the Fluent UI standards? Do we have to sign anything anymore?
It's a very good question. So here's a nice thing. Because the Ribbon platform brings some of the consistency per default, a lot of the things that you had to be very careful to make sure that you were following the Fluent guideline are done for you. So the answer is no. You don't need to sign the Fluent Office guideline anymore. Actually, the end-user agreement that you get and accept when you install the Windows SDK is all you need.
One more.
Yep.
Do we get the floating toolbar?
Oh, yeah, I didn't show that. You get the floaty and contextual menus when you right-click. I didn't show that today. The principle is pretty much the same. There is one more C++ function to do, which is show contextual UI, and you specify which one, and everything else is done in markup again. So you can share easily some command across the two, and the architecture is pretty much the same.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Yep.
Is there any support for localization for French, German, that sort of thing in the markup?
OK. It's a very good question again. So in this first version of the ribbon, we wanted to stay as compatible, as close to be compatible to what you guys are used to. So what is happening behind the doors when you are compiling the markup and where you are seeing all these different attributes specified to the command that generate automatically an RC file and with string tables and icons that you include in your project. So localization is done as you were doing it in the past.
So you can use a resource ID to a string table then for the labels on the buttons and the...
You mean to reuse an existing string table?
Well,
so what you do when you compile the markup is going to generate the string table for you. You don't have to hook anything up. It's going to be done for you. Now what you might be interested in doing is like, well, guys, I have my application. I already have my string table. I just want to reuse it, right? So that is not in code. It's not in markup. And is quite easy to do. Through update properties, there's a bunch of properties that can be queried on you. And if you are interested into this kind of scenario, or you want to update an attribute of a command at runtime, for example, you want to change the icon, well, you can respond to some property at runtime. You don't have to, but if you want to, and when you receive the property, hey, pay key title, you can decide, well, actually use this string. So if you wanted to reuse a string table, it's fairly easy to write a little function that's just going to do a load resource and do that for you.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Hi. Is it possible to create controls dynamically? Like, for instance, you're smiling, I see.
Go ahead.
Like, for instance, you describe everything by using XML, but let's say if I want to use, like, dynamically determine what is my current palette, in, like 16 colors or 256 colors, what should I do?
OK. So some part of the ribbon are static, some part are dynamic. Some of the reason behind that is also consistency. Another reason is like, well, it's V1. But some parts are dynamic. And all the galleries that I didn't show in the coding demo, but that you have in Paint, so these, what I was calling fancy drop-down color picker, or the drop-down color picker, even the built-in one, or any custom galleries where, for example, in Paint, you have all these different shapes. All that you can populate at runtime. So if you want 10 or 60 items into it, you can change that at runtime. And actually, in the Fluent guidelines, so someone was asking about the Fluent UI guideline, part of the guideline that if you want to update your UI dynamically, you might want to use a gallery. This is the right way of doing it. Did I answer your question?
Not exactly.
Thank you.
What I want to do is just click on the button, ribbon, and create another button.
So
Let's say.
Yeah, so that today you won't be able to do so. Well, you could, depending on how complicated you want to create.
So basically, I have to load another XML.
So,
That's the only solution.
It's one way of doing it. An easier way of doing that, if you want to create a lot of control, and the kind of control you want to create are database-driven, there is no good solution for that right now. That might be hard. You might, it will be loading another ribbon, or it will be using a gallery. But if you have a very static set of control that you want to show at runtime, right? And let's say you have a dozen of them. Well, you can use application mode to do so.
OK, thank you.
You're welcome. Yep.
So is there any support for making your own custom controls, or you pretty much just get the controls that are in the box for now?
Right now, it's in the box.
Are the ribbon controls accessible through the UI automation framework?
Yep. All of them.
Talk a little bit to the difference between MFC one and this one as far as coding concerned, because you've been modifying MFC application. I expected this one would have MFC one.
Yeah. So the big commonality between the two ribbons is really in markup. In the code, the functions are different, but the mechanisms are similar. And the reason is because the markup is the same. So the WPF ribbon markup, the way you organize the different control and command is the same. So you define some command. So I have something in WPF that you call ribbon command, where you specify all the attributes exactly the same way that I showed in markup today, and just refer to this command from the different control that you place into your application. So then in code in C#, all you have to do is to respond to the specific command. So the specific syntax might be different, but the mechanism is the same. The syntax of the markup, though, is fairly similar. I would say the big difference, you didn't have that, but I'm going to tell you. The biggest difference between the WPF markup and the Scenic markup is in WPF, the names are the same. but they are all prepended by ribbon. So instead of saying tab, group, button, you have ribbon tab, ribbon group, ribbon button. Instead of command, you have ribbon command. But everything else is the same. Yep.
In regard to the Fluent UI guidelines, curious about the story with the application button. It's a big round pearl, and now it's maybe not.
Yep. So it's a good question. It's fine concerning the Fluent UI guideline. So Office runs some survey, and with the two type of button, and the Office button, which is the round pearl, right, behave quite well, but the square, like the application menu button that I showed today, behave actually even better. So we worked closely with Office, and we told them, well, the round Office Pearl is very much branded Office and doesn't feel that much in the Windows look and feel. Is it okay if we actually update the look and feel? And Office were more than enthusiastic about us doing so. So it's fine. If you're asking, are you asking because you are developing a ribbon yourself?
We're just about to start updating our user interface to use the Fluent UI.
Okay.
And so I'm kind of looking at what tools are available and what we should do.
Okay.
So looking at this, do we have to use the big round pearl, and will this support it?
I'm not entirely sure what today the Office guidelines are specifically saying concerning that. So I will be more than happy to go dig this information for you if you want. Let's talk after. So if you want to build your own ribbon, it's something that, yeah, we need to figure that out.
Will this support that?
Who is will? Scenic Ribbon?
The library,
No, the Scenic Ribbon is only using the look and feel that you have seen today.
Okay, thank you.
This is the official Windows look. Just let you know, the WPF ribbon is going to have the same look. Well, they're actually supporting both look, but they are also supporting the Windows look, which is the official Windows look. And the MFC is also moving to the Windows look, just to let you know.
The official Windows look is the small square button.
Yeah.
And then the Office look is the big round pearl.
Yes, right now, yes, it is.
All right, thank you.
So what is this part of? Like, what do I need to install on the client? Like, is this part of just 32? Because you made it sound like it was going to go backwards back to, like, I don't know what version of Windows.
Vista. Windows 7 is in the box. Vista, we haven't entirely decided how it's going to be released to Vista. There might be several mechanisms. Maybe it will be, so whatever I'm going to say might not be the way we're doing it. I mean, there are several ways, right? Service pack, Windows update, redistributable package, but right now nothing is decided, so anything is possible.
Okay.
Do you think we lost some kind of a visual experience with the ribbon?
What do you mean?
Now we gotta manually edit XML file instead of using a visual designer for building a UI.
Okay, so you are talking about the authoring tools. Well, two things about that. Today, there is no authoring tool. It doesn't mean that there will never be an authoring tool. It just means that today, there is no authoring tool. And as you have seen, as I was saying, we are working cross technologies to bring this ribbon platform. So nothing is decided, but it will be amazing if no authoring tool come to target these technologies from an authoring tool standpoint. So even if there is no authoring tool, the syntax of the markup is pretty straightforward and very intuitive. So I do not worry that much that actually about people editing directly in markup. And again, because a lot of the behavior are built in the platform, you never have to specify, well, you know what, let's move this controller like 3 pixels to the right or a little bit lower. All that is done automatically through the layout rules that are built into the ribbon. So all you have to describe in the markup is the organization of command that you want to use in your application. And actually, doing that in XML is fairly convenient, actually.
The primary purpose was to give that job to a designer. And
well,
I guess a designer would be much more happy with just creating a form and dropping a bunch of controls on it instead of editing an XML file.
You're right. You're right. So definitely, some designers won't like the XML. Though now, with a lot of designers are doing Flash authoring and Silverlight authoring and this kind of technologies that require a bit more knowledge just doing pretty pixels on screen, right, with Photoshop. So there is definitely a class of designer that the XML will say, I don't want to look at it. But there is definitely a class of designer that won't have any issue doing it too. And even if right now there is no authoring tool, let's imagine later there is one. Because there is a very clear distinction between markup and code, and no code leaks into the markup, what is nice is whatever needs to be modified in the authoring application or in the XML is never going to introduce some concept that are going to be foreign to the designer. It's always going to keep it fairly into the area that the designer might feel more or less comfortable with, which is nice.
Does the Scenic API offer more than Ribbon?
So yeah, I forgot a lot of things as I was going through this presentation. I guess it's supposed to happen. Yeah, very good question. What the heck is Scenic, right? And so first, don't get attached too much to the name because it might change. It's an internal code name. When we go RTM, it might be a different name. Maybe not, but it might be. So Scenic is a new set of API that we are making available in Windows 7. So it's more than the ribbon. One another example of one of the API that are available, that will be available in Windows 7, is the Scenic Animation API. There is hands-on lab about that too, by the way, if you're interested. And what that allows you to do is to create some interpolation spline easily and to interpolate value in memory over time, automatically hook that up to some object that you might want to use to, I don't know, animate some visual element on screen or something like that. And the same way that we did with the Windows Scenic Ribbon, the way we architected these two platforms is we wanted to make it super easy for you guys actually to incrementally adopt them into your application and not have to rewrite some big chunk of your application. And I hope I demonstrated that today with HTML Edit, is that if you want to use the ribbon, certainly you don't need to reuse the, I don't know, the ribbon framework. No, it's like something you can use on the side. And it doesn't mean there won't be more functionality later, but it means that we are trying to architect this platform and this new functionality in a way that is non-intrusive, if that makes sense.
Does the ribbon, the ribbon you show, is it a DX surface or is it a GDI surface?
Today it's a GDI.
It's going to be a DX surface?
Today is GDI. Look, it might be not. We'll see. In Windows 7, it will be GDI. Well, thank you, guys. There is Ask the Experts right now. I invite you to go there. I will be there, actually, if you have more questions. Thank you very much.